In the dead hush of a storm-struck night, Maya Chen pushed through the freezing dark with her daughter pressed close to her side, carrying nothing but the weight of a life that had collapsed faster than she could comprehend. The shelter's fluorescent lights had barely dimmed when the letter arrived, a thick envelope on expensive paper that felt impossibly out of place beside donated blankets and metal cots. Inside it lay a revelation that didn't belong to someone with $43 to her name. A gray tuncle she'd never met, a man whispered about as a recluse and a genius, had left her an estate hidden deep in the Cascade Mountains. A fortress, a place that sounded like myth spoken in a language she no longer believed the world had room for. Yet there she was, clutching its key, heavy brass etched with symbols she couldn't decipher as the storm pounded the windows. She told herself it was just a piece of metal, just words on paper. But part of her, the part that had been bruised by too many endings, felt something stirring beneath the fear. Something old, instinctive, desperate. Maybe beginnings sometimes looked like impossibilities. And so, with her daughter's small hand wrapped in hers, she stepped into the unknown with the only thing she still possessed, the courage to keep moving. The next morning, the mountains rose before them like titans carved from stone, as Jack Morrison's aging Jeep fought its way up the ruined road. Jack, weathered, soft-spoken, and carrying the quiet grief of a man who knew more than he said, had been the only one in the town willing to help. He drove as though he'd made the journey 1,000 times, guiding them through forests thick as secrets, across frozen streams that groaned under the tires, past avalanche scars where the earth had once torn itself apart. All the while he spoke of Dr. Marcus Chen, a man brilliant enough to change medicine, stubborn enough to build a fortress in exile, and wounded enough to hide from the world that betrayed him. The higher they climbed, the more the wilderness swallowed the sky, until the Jeep crested a final ridge and the fortress rose into view. Not a ruin, not a shack, but a towering stronghold of stone and timber clinging to a cliff as if daring the mountains to take it. Lily gasped. Maya forgot how to breathe. Jack simply nodded, as though seeing a long-kept promise fulfilled. The wind roared around them, cold and wild, but something warm flickered inside Maya, a fragile ember of belonging she hadn't felt in years. Whatever lay behind that massive carved door, it was hers now. And the mountains, ancient and indifferent, stood witness as she placed the key into the lock. Later, light exploded through the great hall as Jack found the generator panel, revealing a world preserved like a time capsule sealed against despair. Vaulted ceilings arched overhead, bookshelves stretched toward the rafters, and dust sheets draped over hand-carved furniture like silent ghosts. The piano Lily touched released a single trembling note that echoed through the chamber as if awakening something long asleep. Maya's fingers brushed spines of medical texts older than her, and she felt the presence of the man who had lived here, his brilliance, his loneliness, his unbroken persistence. Then Jack handed her a second envelope, brittle with age. Inside, Marcus Chen's handwriting unfurled like a voice reaching across decades. If you're reading this, you've lost everything. Good. Only those who understand loss can protect truth. And then instructions, cryptic, bold, directing her toward the tower, toward symbols carved through the fortress itself. It wasn't just an inheritance, it was a challenge, a plea. A burden forged from injustice and guarded by stone. As she read the words again, her pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the uncanny sensation that her entire life had been leading her here. Shelters, betrayals, endings, they had all carved her into the kind of person who dared to open locked doors in forgotten towers. And now those doors waited. That same night, the tower staircase spiraled around Maya like a living labyrinth, symbols etched into the stone glowing faintly beneath flashlight beams. Lily climbed ahead, fearless in a way only children could be, as Maya traced the carvings with trembling fingers. Equations, molecular chains, Mandarin characters she barely remembered from childhood stories. At the summit stood the massive safe, cold and silent like a sentinel guarding a secret the world had long forgotten. She didn't know the combination. But Lily did what children do, saw patterns adults overlook. The sequence revealed itself in pieces: truth, trust, persistence, until the safe surrendered with a soft, mechanical sigh. Inside waited decades of notebooks, films, drives, and a letter addressed to whoever proved worthy of opening the vault. This research is worth $190 million. It was stolen from me. Now it belongs to you. Maya stared at the evidence of a lifetime of betrayal, her hands shaking. The number meant little beside the truth of it, the vindication of a man destroyed by lies, and the responsibility of exposing a theft that had shaped the medical world. She felt small, terrified, and impossibly alive. The world below the mountain had pushed her to her knees, but here, in this tower of truth, she began to rise. Days later, after the threats arrived and fear pressed against the fortress walls like a storm trying to break in, Maya chose to stand her ground. Journalists hiked miles through snow to reach the fortress, broadcasting her story. Homeless mother inherits mountain stronghold, uncovers stolen medical empire, until the world watched with breathless fascination. Thornton Pharmaceuticals attacked with lawyers, with lies, with the same precision they once used to ruin Marcus Chen. But Maya had something they'd never accounted for: a fortress that refused to yield, a public that refused to look away, and evidence too solid to bury. As helicopters circled overhead and the mountains carried her voice farther than she ever imagined, she realized she was no longer fighting for survival. She was fighting for justice, hers, Marcus's, and for every dismissed soul who had ever been silenced by power. Each night she worked by the great hall's fire, documents spread across the table like the wings of a story waiting to take flight. And each night the fortress seemed to breathe around her, steady and ancient, as if lending its strength to her resolve. In the courtroom months later, truth finally stood taller than every lie built to crush it. Maya testified with a calm forged from the mountain's wind, guiding the jury through Marcus's notebooks, the forged patent records, the stolen breakthroughs. When Thornton himself took the stand, age had not softened the greed carved into his bones. But evidence is patient. Evidence is relentless. Faced with documents, witnesses, forensic reports, and decades of contradictions, his voice cracked beneath the weight of his own deception. Yes, he admitted, I took it. The room erupted. The world erupted. And when the verdict came, $390 million in damages, full restoration of Marcus Chen's legacy, Maya didn't feel triumph. She felt something deeper, something steadier. She felt alignment with the truth. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as she spoke words that echoed across the nation. This victory belongs to everyone who's been mocked, dismissed, or abandoned. Sometimes the people with nothing left to lose are the ones who end up standing tallest. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. In the months that followed, the fortress awakened into something greater than its builder ever dreamed. No longer a sanctuary for one man's sorrow, it became a beacon for those carrying battles too heavy for one pair of hands. Maya transformed the estate into the Chen Fortress Justice Center, a refuge where scientists, workers, whistleblowers, and truth-tellers arrived carrying files, fears, and stories the world had ignored. In its labs and stone halls, they found what Marcus never had: community, support. Rest, a place where their voices mattered. Jack ran the operations with a protective heart. Experts taught residents to safeguard evidence, build airtight cases, and reclaim the power stolen from them. Children laughed in corridors once haunted by silence. Meals were shared where grief once lived alone. And through it all, Maya moved like a steady flame, guiding, guarding, reminding each person that they were not only fighting for justice, but for the right to be seen. The fortress no longer echoed with loneliness. It pulsed with hope, with purpose, with the courage of people who refused to kneel. One quiet evening, as snow drifted across the cliffs and the fortress lights glowed like stars caught in stone, Maya stood in the tower room, her sanctuary, Marcus's legacy, and watched the world far below. Children's laughter traveled up the stairwell. Voices murmured in the great hall as new fellows prepared for their battles. The fortress, once a monument to isolation, had become a home for the brave and the broken alike. She touched the window glass and whispered thanks to the man who built this place to protect a truth the world wasn't ready for. His story had found its ending through her, and hers had found its beginning through him. As she stepped away from the window, her voice lifted softly, carrying the warmth of a storyteller who had fought her way out of darkness. If this journey moved you, if this fortress stirred something in your heart, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. And before you go, where are you listening from, and what time is it as this story reaches you?